This build was S tier before Season 21, but with Season 21, Bungie has given it a massive buff with 4 artifact mods that actually make Void builds stronger. The first being Supernova. Picking up a Void Breach causes your next source of Void damage to create a large weakening pulse. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and hyper focus in on making as many Void Breaches as we possibly can. The next mod reads, picking up a Void Breach gives you an overshield or refreshes your existing overshield, which is also really nice for survivability. However, keep in mind we do have Devour proc, so every time we get an ad kill, we're just going to be getting full health instantly. The overshield is a little bit of a cherry on the cake, and Protective Breach is pretty nice. The next mod though is actually really good. We have Unto the Breach. Defeating a Void debuff target creates a Void Breach while your Void subclass is equipped, and that is going to be key for making those very consistent Void Breaches, because we are going to be debuffing targets with our grenades, which ties into our exotic armor piece due to our fragment Echo of Undermining, and the gameplay loop will give us infinite grenade spam. The last mod that they throw in here is actually Squad Goals, which is performing a finisher. Will actually give Devour to your nearby teammates, which is actually pretty nice. And keep in mind that your teammates don't actually have to have a Void subclass to get Devour. You can have Devour on a Solar class, Arc class, Strand class, doesn't matter. All of those classes, you can have Devour, so it's actually really sick for them, especially if they keep the Devour timer procced by getting kills consistently. With all 4 of these artifact mods, Void builds are extremely strong in Season 21. Now let's break down the exact subclass we're using here. For the super, we're using Nova Bomb Vortex. The reason why is because we can throw our Nova Bomb and then do weapon damage. Nova Warp and a variety of roaming supers have been buffed, but we're still not going to be rocking Nova Warp right now. And Cataclysm can actually get shot out of the air. I made the mistake of actually throwing this one time, and a Wyvern shot it out of the air and completely destroyed my super, and I was like, wow, I'll never use that again in PvE. For the abilities, we're using Healing Rift, which isn't entirely necessary because we do have Devour, but I just choose to use it so that way I have a little bit of a security blanket in case my Devour doesn't get procced in time, and we will be popping our wrists to get our grenade energy back. For the jump, I'm using Burst Glide. If you want to be an absolute crackhead, you can blink around. You only get 1 melee option, so we're using Pocket Singularity. And for the grenade, we're using Vortex grenades. We're going to make sure to charge them up as well. So they're going to be super powerful, suck all of the ads in, debuffing them, and also giving us Void Breaches, which will then tie into any of the artifact mods we have in regards to Void Breaches. For the aspects, we're going with Chaos Accelerant, which is going to buff our Vortex grenade, the size and the lingering duration of it. On top of that, we're then going to have Feed the Void, so that way we can get Devour every time we throw that grenade at an enemy, and every time we get additional kills, it will extend that timer. For the fragments, first up we have Undermining. Even though it does give you minus 20 discipline, so it can make it difficult to get back up to 100 discipline with this fragment on, this is the strongest fragment for all Void classes. This is like the identity of Void builds in general, and honestly, if you see a Void build that doesn't have Echo of Undermining, I would be very skeptical of that, because Void classes are the only classes just have like a built-in debuff because of Undermining. All my builds start with Undermining at minimum, especially for boss DPS phases. Next up, we have Echo of Persistence, which is going to make our Devour last longer. And we have Echo of Remnants, which is going to make our grenade last even longer. And lastly, we have Echo of Expulsion, which is going to make targets explode, which is why you're going to see endless Void explosions on the screen from the gameplay behind you, because we're spamming infinite grenades in the dungeon and everything's exploding. Now onto the armor. For the helmet, we're going to be rocking double Ashes to Assets so we can get our supers back as fast as possible. You could also swap out one of the Ashes to Assets for just a heavy ammo finder. It's always a good option to have that. And then we have on a Void Siphon and a Void GL, or you could use a Void Machine Gun like Commemoration. For the gauntlets, of course, we're going with Controverse Hold. The reason why is because it gives you resisting incoming damage when you're charging that grenade. You're much harder to kill while you're charging your nade, and then charged Void grenades return grenade energy on a hit. And with that extra lingering duration, you're going to get your grenade back almost in its entirety every time you throw the grenade, at least at like 2 or 3 ads. For the mods on the gauntlet, we're going with Firepower, so that way those grenades we throw out there make orbs on the enemies, and then we'll be picking up grenade kickstarts. So when we pick up those orbs, we're going to get armor charge. When we get the armor charge, we'll then throw our grenades and get a ton of grenade energy back immediately because of grenade kickstart, and then fastball, so that way our grenades go exactly where we want them to. Moving on down to the chest piece now, we're going to have Charged Up. This will increase our maximum number of armor charges we can carry, and this is going to tie into stacks on the boots that we'll get to in a moment. The other mods, you can use whatever you want just to resist the enemies based on what they're shooting at you and proximity of how far away they are when they're shooting you. Now onto the boots, we have stacks on stacks. As mentioned before, picking up an Orb of Power grants you an additional armor charge stack, so you get 2 instead of 1. We've got Void Weapon Surge because we're rocking Void weapons that tie into the synergy of the subclass. And then lastly, we just have Innervation just in case we can't quite get our grenade back. For example, sometimes I will throw my grenade and it will only hit 1 enemy, giving me back like 75% of my grenade. What I will do is go and pick up an Orb of Power, and that can get me my grenade back, but I can also pop a Rift, which we'll get to in a moment on the class ability. We went with Reaper, so that way every time we do spawn that Rift and we get a weapon kill, we'll make another Orb of Power to tie into the armor charges. We also want Font of Restoration, so that way we'll get our recovery up as high as we possibly can, so we can pop rifts as fast as possible, which ties back into Reaper, and is just always overall really nice for just having survivability due to the healing rift strength. And then lastly, we do have Bombron, so that way, like I mentioned before, if you don't quite get your grenade back, your options are pick up an orb or pop your rift, both of which will fulfill your grenade energy, allowing you to continuously spam infinite charged up void grenades, which is the strength of this build and what makes it so unbelievably powerful. The stats are 100 resilience, 100 discipline, then I went with as much recovery as I could possibly get. After that, it doesn't really matter too much. This build has been out for a while and it's always been really fun, but this season it's just even more powerful, even more potent. As you can see in the gameplay behind me, everything is exploding, everything is getting debuffed. Nade spam is crazy, constant devour, timer reprocking and extending the timer of that. This build is S tier, and in this season it's S plus tier. It's like literal god mode out there in the dungeon, and highly recommend to try this build out if you haven't already. Dim link to this build will be down below. And if you want to see another crazy Arc Warlock build, click on this video right here. And as always, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, smash the like button. I'll see you in the next one. Later.